Hey everybody, Jeremy here from Gnomebot Studios. Thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to cover a basic combat tutorial for Grit Fantasy RPG. This is a game that I released not too long ago on DriveThruRPG, both as a softcover, hardcover, and PDF. I'm pretty excited to do this kind of tutorial today, and I'm going to be using Roll20 for the examples. There's quite a bit of things to kind of cover to get you a basic knowledge of how things work, even though the system is really simple and easy to use in combat. So the first thing I want to kind of go over is the character sheet, because that's going to be in front of you in combat. This is an example of one. It's an 8.5 by 11 that I have offered that comes with the books and PDF. So you have this here. What you're going to be looking at mostly in combat are the aspects, which are the stats. So you have on the left-hand side here, might, prowess, valor, insight, and command. You're going to have soak, which is going to reduce damage. That's, basically armor and shields. Grit is your life points. So you're going to have 10 as your max. So there's two boxes. One on the right is your max. One on the left is your current. And then you have 10 slots of gear. Quite a number of those will probably be weapon-based items. There's another example of a character sheet that I have here that I'll show you in a moment. That's a little different structure. That's the one that's found in the book, and that's the 6 by 9 size. And that is also offered as a PDF when you buy the books. So I just want to go over the aspects with a little more depth. Okay, so the two main aspects you're going to be using in combat are might and prowess. So might is your raw physical strength. This is what you're going to be using to like make a melee attack or melee combat. It includes the weapons, melee weapons, unarmed attacks, such as brawling or punching, kicking, grappling, that kind of stuff. Also used for lifting, pushing, pulling, and breaking objects. Prowess is more refined physical ability, so firing and throwing ranged weapons such as bows, crossbows, throwing knives, and darts. Also used for jumping, swimming, climbing, dodging, and stealth. The next one is valor, and this one is your mental and physical resilience. So those familiar with like D&D, this would be similar to Constitution. So you're going to resist effects such as fear, intimidation, magic effects, mind control, and poisons with this. Next one is insight. This happens a little less in combat, but sometimes. It's about perception, sensory awareness, tracking and foraging skills. You can use this to repair, modify, operate devices and gadgets. So if you're going to use like a lock-picking kit, insight would be what you use. Fifth one is command. This is your social competency. It's all about acting, charm, intimidation, deception, like wearing disguises. And also because it ties into like arcane languages and magic, you're using this to use instruments, scrolls, wands, magic crystals, and stuff like that. Here's an example of a character. This is the 6 by 9 size character sheet. So along the top are your aspects. And this here is Grim. He's like found throughout the book. And this is his stats here. So he has a +2 might, -1 prowess, +1 valor, -1 insight, and -1 command. He is a human, so his ability gives just a different focus dice pool. I'll go over focus dice a little bit later. His soak is 3 because of his equipment, and grit is maxed out at 10 at the moment. He's got an iron spiked shield, which gives him soak 1. He's got medium armor, which gives him soak 2. A long sword, which is melee. Bow and quiver, which is prowess. And a dagger, which is melee and thrown. I'm going to give you an example of some equipment later. I'll kind of go through that shortly. As far as what's happening on the GM side, monsters work a little bit differently. They're not going to have the standard 5 stats or 5 aspects that a character will have. So if you look on the top right-hand corner here, this is the stat block for monsters. So they only have 3 numbers that you have to deal with. First one is the universal aspect value, and that is used for every single roll they make. There are no separate aspects. So in this case, a skeleton is -1. Middle number is the amount of grit they have. So in this case, this is a mook. He's very weak. He's got 1 grit. So 1 shot, death, basically. And then the third number is the number of turns per round. So he can only take 1 action, 1 reaction, basically 1 turn per round. Monsters are a little different, that they have multiple abilities, which are called features. And usually I only end up using 1 or 2. This is just a suggestion for what a skeleton would have. So it's optional to use whatever you want that's given to you for these features. So if you want to make it simpler, just run with 1. If you want to use none at all, you can do that. Or if you want to add some or just change it, that's fine. It's all up to you as a GM. But I did want to just make a point with this stat block here, because that's what you're going to be using as a GM. I want to show you that armor and weapons, the basic items here. So this is the basic item list from the character sheet. And what you're going to notice is obviously the description name, and then it's going to have the aspect it uses and just a brief kind of description. So like a battle axe is a melee weapon, so you're going to use might. Bow and quiver is a ranged weapon, shoots long range, so it uses prowess. One thing that has come up that people have had questions on is are the items that have both M and P listed. So as you see here, the dagger has MP, melee, thrown. That does not mean you get to choose between melee or might and prowess when using the dagger. It depends on how you're using it. So if you're attacking with it in melee, like stabbing an opponent, you use might. If you're throwing it at short range, because thrown weapons only go short range, then you use prowess. Okay? Any item that has a number next to it is going to show you that there's 3 darts here. And as those are used, that number is reduced. You can sometimes find those once they're used. That's up to you and the GM. And then like armor is shown here with a soak. There's sometimes a prowess penalty, or mostly is a prowess penalty with all armor. Some of the nicer armor will not have a prowess penalty, or it'll be less. So that's pretty much it for those. There are also items and kits that come with the choice for a character. You're given 4 choices to the kind of stock your character with to start out with. And there's just a couple things I want to show you here. Like there's items here that have an SU. That is a single use item. So you use that once and it is done. So in the case of caltrops here, single use, there's 2 of them. Takes prowess to use it because you're throwing it out. It goes over a melee radius, I'll go over that later, and then deals 2 damage when you step on it. There are other things like tools, like a crowbar, takes a melee or a might to use it. You could probably use it in melee too, but that's going to be reduced because it's an improv weapon. And then all these kind of just have a description around them. All right, so I'm going to go through the basics of making rolls. Real easy. I've gone over this with other videos I put out. So this kind of breaks down what you're going to need to do to make a roll in the game. When it's your turn, or if you're taking a turn and you want to try to do something, you first declare your objective. Kind of announce what your character is going to do. The GM takes that into consideration and tells you basically if it's a static roll that you need to make or if it's an opposed roll that you need to make. Also, they include what aspect you're going to use. And if it's a static roll to beat a target number, they're going to give you a difficulty level, which is one of 4 difficulties: easy, average, hard, and absurd. Okay. On an opposed roll, you're just opposing the roll of the monster NPC, whoever you're opposing for what you're trying to achieve. Then, once that's decided, you make your aspect roll. So you take your D12 die, which is the primary die, shown below here. You roll it and add your aspect value to it. So if you're making a melee attack, you roll a D12, add your might. Okay? You have focus dice in this game. They're listed or shown below here in the bottom right-hand side. You have a D4, D6, and D8. Those are removed from the game once they're used and only recovered in the next session or if there's ample time of rest in the game. So you have the decision to make, after you make your aspect roll and add your aspect value, to roll a focus die. You don't have to, but if you decide to do that, you choose one of the 3, or whatever you have left of the 3, roll that and add it to the roll. So to make a new total. And then you just announce the result, the number, and the GM will narrate what happens in the moment. So rolling is very simple. Static rolls, again, easy, average, hard, absurd. You're going to have to beat these numbers, not meet them. Most static rolls are average. Opposed rolls are obviously, you roll the die, the GM rolls the die, whoever gets the higher one wins. If it's a tie, then it's a stalemate. But in combat, each opponent is dealt 1 grit damage. Quick one on movement and range. There's only 3 movements and ranges. They're shared, basically. So we have melee, which is very close hand-to-hand combat. This encompasses wielding handheld weapons, biting, brawling, claws, grappling, that kind of stuff, like up close and personal stuff. You have short, which is distance covered by running a few seconds, and the range of thrown weapons, such as darts and spears. There's long range, which is twice the distance of a short move, while at a full sprint, and the range of fired weapons, such as bows and crossbows. Another thing about bows and crossbows, they are ammunition-based. We do not keep track of ammunition in grit. So you have an unlimited supply of arrows and bolts. All right, let's get into like more of the combat specific stuff. Okay, so grit does not have an initiative system. There's not a set turn order in combat. So what it is a shared sort of experience where the GM and the players kind of figure out together what the order is every round. Okay, the only rule that happens is the last to take an action in a round cannot be the first to do so in the next. Okay, so combat happens in a series of rounds, and everyone gets a turn, okay, including the GM. So if your turn comes and you want to take an action, you are allowed to make a short move either before or after your action, and then do either one of these three things. You can attack, you can sprint, or do some kind of miscellaneous action. So attacking, basically, you take one of your weapons and you attack an opponent with it. So if it's a melee attack using a melee weapon, you make a might roll to attack with that weapon against your opponent. If it's opposed, obviously you roll against each other. If that opponent does not or cannot react to you, then you just make a static roll, and that's usually against an average target number, but it's determined by the GM. Now, if you have a ranged weapon and you want to fire it at an opponent, you have to be a distance away, and you roll prowess to make the attack. So if you're using a dart and you want to throw it at an opponent, it has to be within short range. You can't be in melee range and make a ranged attack. So you throw that dart, make a prowess roll. If you either beat the static number or beat an opposed roll for someone dodging or somebody counterattacking you with a ranged weapon, then you do the damage. Okay. The sprinting, basically what happens there is you just make two short moves. So you make a long distance movement. Okay. That's all you do. Miscellaneous is something like climbing a wall, picking a lock, using a special gear item, activating an artifact, hunkering down behind a shield or a tree or something like that. The GM will help you kind of work through that. And also, as part of an action, you get a free action, which is something really quick, such as consuming a food item, drinking a potion, or handing off a piece of gear item to one of your allies. On the other side of that is making a reaction. So if someone attacks you, you have the choice to make a reaction to them. So you can do one of two things. You can counterattack or you can dodge. Okay? So if someone comes running at you with a melee weapon and makes a melee attack against you, you can choose to attack with a melee weapon back. You must have a melee weapon to do that. Or do like a brawling attack, which would be, punching, kicking, biting, whatever. So that takes a might roll. And that's an opposed roll. Okay? If someone decides to shoot you with a ranged weapon, let's say your opponent has a bow and you have a bow, and they shoot at you, you can choose to counterattack by shooting back with your bow. In that instance, you take your prowess, make a prowess aspect roll, and oppose that opponent. Whoever gets the higher roll wins. Okay? Ranged weapons, again, cannot be used to counter melee attacks. And you must be within range to actually make the attack. So if somebody's throwing a knife and you have a bow, they can't reach you with if you're far enough away, if you're long distance away and they try to throw a dart at you, they're not going to get you, but you can fire back at them. Or vice versa. You can attack somebody from long distance away and they can't counterattack you because counterattack you with a dart because they have a dart that only goes short distance, if that makes sense. Okay, so the next thing is you can dodge, which means you make a prowess roll, and if you beat your opponent, your opponent's roll, their attack is negated. Okay. A couple examples there. Another thing you can do is just simply take the hit. So a target being attacked may choose not to react and simply take the hit. The attacking roll will be average against you, unless it's modified by the GM. If you survive, it opens up your turn for later in the round. Okay? Because if you make a counterattack, you cannot take another turn because that is your turn. Now, after a reaction, you can also make a short move. Another thing to consider too in combat, which is a big deal, is flanking. So when a combatant is engaged in melee combat and cannot react, melee attacks against him from others are easy. You cannot do this with ranged attacks. I'm going to go over this in the examples on the map. Almost done here with this stuff. Okay, damage, very simple. If you're making a static roll, it's the difference between the roll and the target number. So, example here, Grim fires his bow at a troll. A static prowess roll is made with an average difficulty of 6. That results in a 9. Grim inflicts 3 points of damage to the troll. Okay, simple and very fast. There's no extra rolling for damage. Unless you're doing a straight die, which I'll go over in a minute. Okay, so next one is opposed roll, which is just the difference between the two rolls. Okay, so an orc swings an axe at Grim, who counterattacks with his sword. An opposed roll is made. The orc rolls 6 and Grim rolls 10. Grim succeeds and delivers 4 points of damage to the orc. Very simple. Fixed damage is just a single value, which is usually 1 through 3. And this is more about maybe poison. So like in this example, for 3 rounds, Grim will take 1 point of fixed damage. Okay. Straight damage is basically a set die. So in this example, Grim attempts to move through an area with falling debris and fails his prowess roll. The GM simply rolls a straight d6 die with a result of 3. Grim is dealt 3 damage. Okay, it usually happens more on the GM side of things, but there are some items that deal straight damage. Okay, the next thing is soak. So armor and shields provide soak value. So armor is going to provide a value between 1 and 3 depending on what kind of armor it is. Shields always give you a value of 1. And you combine those two things and that is your soak. So in Grim's example, he has 3. So his soak is 3. So anytime he takes damage, he automatically reduces that damage by 3. Okay. Another thing that shields do is you can sacrifice it to negate one single incoming attack, which is kind of cool. But your shield is no longer. Last thing I want to cover here is reaching 0 grit. So the first time you reach 0 grit, you must immediately choose going between Blaze of Glory or receiving a second chance. Monsters and NPCs do not get this option. So if you go out in a Blaze of Glory, the player describes one final action of incredible heroism. It is resolved without a roll and considered a natural 12. If you have a focus die to use, it's added at maximum value. After going out in a Blaze of Glory, the character permanently dies. Okay. Second chance, the PC dramatically pops up on their next turn with 1 grit. However, your grit maximum is now permanently reduced to 5. If you're reduced to 0 once more, you immediately die and have no chance of Blaze of Glory or second chance. This works great for one-shots and stuff like that. Blaze of Glory is actually a really, really cool way to go out and has been clutch in a number of games I've run. Okay, that kind of covers the basics here. I want to move over into the example page. Let's do that. Zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so I have a couple characters here in the bottom left, and a number of skeleton mooks that are just kind of like hanging out in the ruins here. Okay, so what I'm going to do here with these characters, I am not going to run a full character sheet on these. I'm going to treat these as NPCs for this example. I'm going to make some more example videos here with another player, so that I'll be playing as a GM. I'll have the player playing as characters, and you're going to see that dynamic. But for ease of use today, I'm just going to run these as NPCs, which have the same exact stat blocks as monsters. So I've just kind of put them in here in these bubbles. So they have +1 aspect. So any roll I'm going to make is just going to be +1. They have 10 grit, and they have 1 turn per round. Okay. These skeletons have 0 aspect, so I'm not going to add anything to the roll. They have 5 grit, and they have 1 turn per round. So these are really more like goons. There's mooks, goons, and bosses. So this is just a simplified version of a monster. I'm not going to give them any kind of special abilities or features. So 0 aspect, universal aspect value, 5 grit, 1 turn. I'm going to say that these guys have a longsword and shield and a dagger. And these guys are going to just have a short sword. The ones in the little blue, with the blue circles, they're going to have like bows as well, because I want to show you ranged. So first thing I want to show here is kind of what range looks like. So melee range would be up close and personal. So if these guys are touching, that is melee range. Okay. And you can picture melee radius kind of being, kind of around like that space there. So short range, it's very loose, okay? So short range would be probably from this guy to this guy. So if he was gonna move a short distance, I would say that's about short range. Okay, so that is the range of a dagger or throwing knives or a dart. If you want to go long range, it's going to be twice that. So I'm going to move this guy. It's going to put this guy like here, right? If he was running in a straight line. So if you're sprinting, you could go from here to here in a long distance, okay? That's also the range of bows. So as long as you have line of sight, you could make that shot. If he was if this guy had a bow here and was trying to shoot this guy, because of this wall, probably not very possible. Okay, so that's the ranges. So you can picture the radius of a, let's see, melee would be more like this, right? Short would be kind of like this, where short is, between this, and then long is going to be kind of twice that, right? So long radius, not the greatest circle, but you get the point. Some things have radiuses that they do, or the effects are applied within a radius. All right, I think that is that for range and stuff. Let's go over flanking real quick. Okay, so let's say these two guys square off in combat. They've both taken their turns. to attack each other. Let's say the skeleton got the upper hand and did a point of damage to this guy. Okay, so they have both taken their turn. It is now the GM's turn, obviously because well, not obviously. Maybe the character took their turn to attack this skeleton. Now the GM steps in, takes their turn. These guys are already tied up. They're in melee range with each other. And this guy runs out and attacks the character. He is now flanking because there's another one of them who is adjacent to this character who cannot react. So what they do is a static roll against the character, and that is easy. So easy is 3. All they need to do is beat a 3. So let's roll this out. They roll a 4. So he actually does 1 point of damage to him. Okay. Now if another one comes in, still more flanking. They're going to roll again, an easy. This time doing 3 points of damage. Okay, so you can see how this can get dangerous if there's kind of, dangerous monsters. Monsters that have multiple attacks cannot do a flanking attack because it's just one monster, right? So if this skeleton had 2 attacks and already kind of is tied up with this guy, it wouldn't be flanking. It would just be an average attack roll. Okay, if that makes sense. All right, let's see if there's anything else here. Sorry, I need to drink something here. Okay, so I think I'm going to just do a quick few rounds here to show you, and we'll wrap this up. Okay, so this guy, I think GM is just going to be a little more defensive here, or not. I'm not gonna, the GM side of things, he's not gonna be aggressive. So these guys are just kind of come into the space. I'm gonna say, okay, this guy is like, oh, I'm gonna go check out, and I'm gonna listen first before I do anything. So he's gonna take his +1. If you notice, I have my macros on the bottom here set up. It's so nice to have these in Roll20. So he gets a +1 to roll. So I'm going to have him do an average roll. So he gets a 13, and he is just absolutely attuned to the environment. He knows this skeleton is there. It's making the noise. And, with that roll, I'm going to say he's aware that there's an ambush going to happen. Okay, so he alerts his buddy. He's going to take his move and just sort of stand at the edge of this wall. His buddy's going to take a cue from that and just rush in and attack this skeleton. So player would be say, I run in with my longsword and swing at this skeleton. GM would say the skeleton is counterattacking with their short sword. And so I'm going to roll the player first, character first, actually. He rolls an 8. The skeleton counterattacks with his short sword, and he does not do well. That is 6 points difference. In one shot, this character takes out this skeleton because it deals 6 points of damage. They only have 5 grit. He is dead. Falls in a pile of bones. All right, so the players have taken their turns. The GM now takes their turn. So I'm going to say these guys are going to come out. A couple of these archers are going to come out. These guys are going to start kind of shambling, doing just short moves. They don't have to sprint. It's up to the GM. But this guy is going to rush in. I'm going to say it's a short move. So, and he's just going to make an attack. And that's an average roll. It's not a flanking roll because that other skeleton's dead. Wow. He needed to beat a 6. He does 4 points of damage to this guy. I forgot to say that these guys have a shield and light armor. So the skeleton needed to beat a 6. He does 4 points of damage. This guy has 2 soak, so he only takes 8, or 2 points, and has 8 left. Okay. The rest of these guys are just kind of shambling towards the area. This guy's going to stay behind that wall. And that is 1 round, okay? Now, the GM was the last to act in that round, or take an action, so these guys get their choice of, acting in the next round first. So I'm going to say this guy, he's going to move to this wall, take his dagger, and throw it at this guy. Okay? Skeletons are dumb. They're not going to dodge or counterattack. So he's going to just make a roll. He gets +1. And he is throwing his dagger, so here we go. Rolls a 9. Okay, he needed a 6 because it's an average roll. He does 3 points of damage. Skeleton is not dead, but it is damaged. Only has 2 left. I'm just going to put a little dot here to say that this one was used. Okay, this guy, he is going to, swing his sword once again against this skeleton. Skeleton is going to counterattack once again. So this guy is going to swing his sword. He gets +1. Skeleton needs to beat a 7. He beats it by 1. So he deals 1 point of damage to the character. The character has 2 soak, so it takes no damage at all. However, the character has now a move left. He's going to make a short move, get to the other side of here. Skeleton will probably follow him. And that is the character's turn. And now these guys are going to do their actions. Okay, this guy is going to rush in with his short sword and attack this guy. This guy cannot react. He's already taken a turn. So skeleton makes his move against an average static roll, misses completely, and also rolls natural 1. So in this case, I'm just going to roll the mighty D4. If it's a 1 or 2, is bad news for him. But didn't break anything, so nothing bad happened, just didn't do any damage at all. Now these other ones, this guy's going to move here, this guy's going to move here. They're both going to fire their bows on this character here. So this one first rolls a 4, needed to beat a 6, does not get it. Same with the other one. Rolls a 4, does not hit it. Typical skeletons, not hitting anything. Okay. And this guy is just going to move here. And this guy, I'm going to say, just disappears. We're not going to have him in there. He falls into a pile of bones. He's not up for fighting. Okay, that is the round. That's round 2 is done. We're going to do round 3 and just wrap it up. Okay, so once again, GM was last to take an action. So it's up to the players. This guy is tired of this skeleton here. He turns around, swings his sword at this skeleton behind him. Skeleton is going to counterattack. Player rolls +1. Wow, gets a 13. Skeleton rolls a 7. That is 6 points of damage. The skeleton is gone. Falls to a pile of bones. This guy is really rocking these skeletons. All right. I'm going to say that the GM takes their turn this time. He's going to rush in, make a average attack roll against them. Using their short sword, obviously, it would be might if it was a character, but these are just monsters. They get their universal aspect value, so he rolls. Does not get anything. Swings and misses. Okay, Skeleton is going to continue doing his attack. Player is going to counterattack. So skeleton rolls a 12. What's going to happen to the player? Let's see. 11. Only 1 point of damage. He has 2 soak. He takes no damage at all. The skeleton is taken up. I'm going to take this little dot off. So these 3 here are left. This guy is going to rush up and flank this player. He's going to roll against an easy target number. Beats it by 2. So he does 2 points of damage, but this guy has soak. So he takes no damage. Now these archers are going to fire at this character. I'm going to make it hard because they're firing through their buddies. So they're both going to roll against a hard, which is 9. 6 and a 2, and they both do no damage at all. Okay. Maybe we'll do another round. Why not? Okay. Round number 4. The player actually round 3, the GM was last to act again. The player here reacted, so they didn't have a turn left to take. So it's up to the players. This guy, once again, is going to swing his longsword against this skeleton. He is going to roll with a +1. A 10. Skeleton is going to counterattack with his short sword. 2 points of damage difference. The skeleton takes 2 points of damage. One thing I did not mention are the focus dice. Because I'm running these as NPCs, I'm not using focus dice in this example, but if this was a player or a player character, he would have focus dice available. So that player could have chosen to, add a focus die to that roll and just decimate this skeleton. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go to this guy. He is not liking getting ganged up on here. So he's going to attack one of these guys, which is they're going to counterattack. He rolls a 10. Skeleton rolls a 4. He does 6 points of damage. Skeleton is dead. He has a move, and so he is going to duck in, kind of run here with his buddy. Oh man, they're overwhelming us. Don't worry, I got this. All right. The skeleton is going to rush behind him. Now it's the GM's turn. He's going to rush behind, just make an attack. This is going to be an average roll. 10. He does 4 points of damage because it's an average roll. Soak of 2. He takes 2 damage. So both of them are at 8. It's only these archers left. This one is going to just fire in on this guy. So he's going to make a hard roll because he's firing through his buddy. Rolls a 1, mighty D4, nothing happens. And this guy just sort of wanders off. He's bored. All right. Well, I feel like I need to finish this up, so I'm going to do another round here. GM again was last to act, so players are going to make their turns. So this guy is going to just attack this skeleton in front of him with a +1. Does a 5. Skeleton rolls 6. He does 1 point of damage to the character, but he has 2 soak, so he does no damage. Same thing is going to happen to these two. Character rolls a 5. Skeleton rolls a 2 or 7, dealing 2 damage, but they have 2 soak, so takes no damage at all. This skeleton is done with his bow, runs in and flanks this guy with his short sword. That's 3, which is easy, is the target number, and he misses. And he also breaks his short sword because he rolled a 1 on the mighty d4. So I'm not going to continue going through this any longer. You kind of get the idea. What I really am looking forward to doing is getting Ryan in here for a real combat example between GM and characters, either 1 or 2 characters. We'll figure that out with kind of multiple scenarios, just to kind of show you how that works. But this gives you a basic idea of, the rudimentary structure of Grit Fantasy RPG combat. Okay. So stay tuned for the next combat examples. Look forward to doing those, and I have some more examples I want to work through, or tutorials and things I want to work through for Grit Fantasy RPG with other aspects of the book. Okay, so take care, guys. As always, happy gaming. Take care of yourselves and roll those dice.